Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Clarksville, Missouri today at the Elgin Cottrell house. This house behind me is the oldest house in all of Pike County, Missouri, and certainly in Clarksville. The old part of the house on the back side was built in 1845 as a stagecoach stop. The new part of the house was built for the Elgin family. That's the part that faces the river. That was in 1860. The man that owns this house not only has a beautiful home to visit, but he's a Christmas fanatic. And this is the time to see this house. Well, Richard, inside the Cottrell Elgin house, you know, we get to see a really neat facsimile of the house that we just saw outside. You just built this just pretty recently, didn't you?
I made it a couple of years ago. I really wanted a gingerbread house, but I was inspired by these little German houses, and I made a paper house instead.
And it's made of what, cardboard?
Cardboard.
That's neat.
Yeah, and it's to scale. 1/4 inch equals a foot.
Is that right?
Right.
So you had to measure your house, didn't you?
Well, I kind of knew it from memory.
You kind of knew. And then tell me about Clarksville here, this village of little snow-covered houses.
It's make-believe village of Clarksville, one of the churches and some of the other houses. These are German houses, and they're made by a factory called Putz, P-U-T-Z. And the little bottle brush trees were very popular in the late part of the 1800s, early 1900s. And they usually put the little village under the tree, but I didn't have room, so it ended up on the piano.
So you used the baby grand piano for it, huh? That's perfect. That's perfect. Now, you are such a Christmas enthusiast. Did this start as a kid for you?
It started when I was 12. My mother had a baby. I had a little brother when I was 12, and my father, we grew up on the farm, wasn't a big Christmas person. It was kind of a nonsense. So I thought the baby needed Christmas, so I got into Christmas big time.
For your little brother,
For my little brother.
So you started collecting for your little brother? What kind of stuff did you collect?
I collected Christmas ornaments in these houses and anything that I thought was, of course it's, you know, changed overhand. I've gotten rid of some and added some, but that's what got me the fever started.
Well, as we're going to see as we go through this program, you've got, what is it, six Christmas trees? They're all different. They all have their own personality or historical significance.
Right.
And one of the trees we're going to see is actually, you actually made all of the decorations that are on this tree.
Most of them. There's some that are store-bought, but most of them I made.
So your collection is, number one, your home is fascinating. Number two, your collection of Christmas trees and all the decorations is fantastic. And there's also the artist concept. You're an arts and crafts guy, and you make this stuff, so it's really neat.
Well, I gave tours of the house, so I tried to represent Christmas through the history of the house, and from the beginning when Christmas first became popular in America to kind of where it is now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's talk about like early Christmas trees, and that one over your shoulder is a good example, isn't it?
Yeah, the first Christmas trees were tabletop trees. They were not big trees. And the Germans started that tradition. In the cold winter, they brought the evergreen trees in from the forest so that the house would have some greenery in it and some life. And the first ones didn't have decorations. And then later they started putting candy and cookies and things like that on them. And even put the little Christmas presents on them. But when the presents became too big, they put them under the tree. So that's where that tradition became.
Oh, okay, so they couldn't hang them on the little limbs anymore.
And then when they
got more affluent, the presents got bigger, huh?
Yeah. And then when it became more popular, they came up with these Christmas ornaments that we see here. And they were made in the German households, what we call cottage industry. And the men would blow the ornaments into wooden molds, and the ladies would paint them. And they became popular in America when Mr. Woolworth, the dime store magnate, went there on vacation, discovered them, and imported them to America.
Is that right? And so then they became like, and of course he always sold everything affordable. Right. Everything was affordable at a Woolworth store. So families could afford to start collecting these glass-blown ornaments.
Yes.
You have a tree that has nothing but those glass-blown ornaments on it. We'll see that a little later, right?
Right. And this has some candles, which were the first way to light a tree. And it was very dangerous, so they only lit them on Christmas morning or Christmas Eve night. And they usually kept a bucket of water at the foot. So
I guess so.
So if the tree caught on fire, they could...
you could douse it pretty quick.
So you can imagine the children's eyes when the candles were lit.
Oh, yeah. How much fun that'd be. Okay, and let's take a look at this mantle over here real quick, because of course you made some of the items on here. What'd you make, the bows? Or put the bows together?
The bows. I actually made this needlepoint that's under here.
Oh, you did?
But it's there all year long.
Okay, and we're talking about, I thought these were stockings at first.
No, it's a needlepoint scarf. And I copied this after one that's in the Confederate White House that Mrs. Jefferson Davis made. And I liked it there. So, and the house is about the same period as this house, so I made me one.
In the old days, this greenery would have been brought in probably just a couple of days, or maybe a week before Christmas, because it'd dry out so much.
And these are winter berries, which grow wild all around the woods here in Missouri and other states. And again, they brought the greenery in to decorate the house because it was gloomy in the wintertime, and it gave life.
Sure. You know how dark, oh my goodness, it's dark all the time.
And of course, that's where the traditional red and green colors for Christmas came from. The winter berries are red.
And the evergreen.
And the evergreen is green,
Neat. Okay, let's go into the Victorian room. If we're good, let's walk around that way. Yeah.
Come on over here.
I'm particularly fascinated by this room because it is so big, and you have a lot of what appears to be original furnishings in here, and it's just beautiful what you have done with this house.
Well, the furniture is all of that period. It's not original to this house, but it is all of that 1860 period.
My goodness, look at that gold gilded mirror. Look at that.
The mirror was made in Philadelphia. And it almost didn't fit, but it's got 1 inch to spare up there.
You almost had to expand your house, didn't you?
And this room has a real marble mantle. The other mantles are painted to look like marble.
Yeah.
But this room was built in 1860 as an addition to the house when Mr. Elgin had a lot of money, so he could afford a real marble mantle.
Yes, he could. He did wonders, didn't he? This is, like you say, this is the new part of the house. The old part was built as a stagecoach stop, I guess.
Right, about 1845.
And then when he wanted to move his family into the proper part of the house, he built on.
He built on.
And of course, he had the river view because the Mississippi River is right out the front door.
And also the windows go all the way to the floor so that you could raise those up and exit to all the porches. Beautiful. So it was kind of an early air conditioning system.
Beautiful. And also, you know, this rose-colored chandelier up here is remarkable too. I don't know, is there a story there?
Well, I bought those on the internet, and they came from a palace in Turkey. There's 3 of them.
Wow.
And they're cranberry glass, and they were originally gas lights. These are hollow, and the gas would have went through there. And there was a brass thing here that turned the gas off and on, which I didn't like, so I had them taken out. But I kept them in case anybody ever wanted to convert them back.
You know, it really works for your Christmas theme because it looks like ice, and at the top it kind of looks like icicles or candy canes. I mean, it really works for your theme.
And that's why I used the pink and burgundy coloring on the tree because of this glass, the cranberry glass, and the coloring of that chandelier.
Okay. Well, let's go over to the tree and take a look. And this is the tree I mentioned where you made almost everything but the ornaments. You didn't make the ornaments, but you made all of the other.
I made all the medallions. And I made the ribbon rose garlands.
Let's point these out for our cameraman here. So these garlands, these rose garlands you made. You made each rose.
Each one, and it takes a yard of ribbon, and there's about 1,000 roses.
My goodness.
And then these little cornucopia.
Did you say 1,000 roses on this tree? And you're going to show us how to make a rose.
I am.
Okay.
And these little cornucopias here, those would have been filled full of candy or nuts, so the kids could have had little presents on the tree. So those would have been.
What about the butterflies?
The butterflies I didn't make, but somebody did. I don't know who, but they're handmade, but I didn't make them. But I made all these medallions.
Yeah, let's just turn this one so we can get
And we're going to talk about how to make those today, too.
Oh, neat. Okay,
and even the top way up there.
At the very top, the angel? You made that one too.
I fixed that one up.
Now, this is a Victorian-style tree. It's a big tree, has a lot of stuff on it. This is when people in America were getting a little wealthier. They were decorating a little more.
And Christmas was more common. You know, everybody knew what Christmas was and knew more about it. I mean, the first Christmases in America were not well known. Nobody knew what Christmas was because it started in England and Germany, and then it came to America later by way of Queen Elizabeth, actually.
Wow.
So this tree is 9.5 foot.
Okay. And, so you're going to make for us today,
Roses. A garland.
You're going to make for us an ornament. Okay, one of those, okay. And you're going to make a snowflake, right?
Snowflake, and we're going to do a rag garland.
And a rag garland. What's a rag? Can you see? Do we see a rag garland?
The rag garland's in the kitchen. We're going to see it in the kitchen.
Okay.
And they used old clothes or old quilt scraps to make a garland for their fireplaces or doors.
Okay. So they would just cut like a quilt. They would cut little pieces out and
So
use that.
That's one of the first decorations that people who didn't have a lot of money could make. That and the snowflakes, because The rag garland, you can use anything you have laying around, and the snowflake only takes paper. You can even make them out of newspapers. If you can't
Okay, I'll
afford
tell you
paper.
what, before we show the rest of your trees, you've got 6 decorated trees in here, and you've got some really unique ones, and I'm talking about goose feather trees, okay,
Goose
and we're
feather
going to see
trees.
those. But before we see that, let's go see some of the, how you make these roses in the paper,
Okay.
The snowflakes. Gary, we were talking about how people would snip whatever material that they had, maybe, they had clothes wear out or whatever, and what you've done here is you've taken a lot of snips and you put a garland together over your fireplace there, and I imagine that took you several weeks because that's a lot of material.
Well, it took a long time to cut it, and I'll talk about that here in a minute.
Yeah.
I learned how to cut it a little faster. But after that, it was just kind of tying knots, which we're going to demonstrate for you. And then I've hung some of the old-fashioned toys that the kids might have gotten for Christmas. Mr. Elgin had 2 stepchildren, a boy and a girl, so they might have got some of these presents.
Well, and in fact, you and your family made some of that, didn't you? Look,
Right.
like I'm looking at the mittens there.
The mittens and the rag dolls.
Yeah, and you made those just to look really old-fashioned,
Yeah,
right? That's
because
what they would have.
They probably got mittens for Christmas, and Mrs. Elgin probably knitted them. Yeah.
And so you and your sister did that.
Yeah.
That's neat. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's look at how you make a garland like that, or
Okay.
how you at least get started with one.
Well, you have to cut a lot of strips, and these strips are 9 inches long by 2 inches wide, and you can use any variety of fabrics. I tried to use some all red and green because it was Christmassy, and I made a pattern or a template out of some cardboard, and I found the easiest way to cut it was with a razor blade, and I used a kitchen
just use a
board here to protect the table or whatever, and just cut those out. And you can actually fold several and cut several at once.
Okay. How many did you cut there? 2 or 3?
This is just one.
Oh, just one, but you could do 2 or
But
3,
you
I
could
guess.
fold the fabric just right and cut a whole bunch at once, because
Okay.
it does take a lot of them. And then you start out with a piece of rope, and what I do is tie a knot on the end, and that way you can hook it to the fireplace. And also that knot keeps the stuff from falling off after you tie it on. See that little bump right there?
Right.
Keeps those from falling off.
Okay.
And this is a 10-foot garland here, so I measured the fireplace and kind of figured out how long I wanted it, so I got a piece of 10
How much
foot.
drape you wanted?
And I got a 10-foot piece of rope to start out with.
Okay.
And then after that, it's just simply taking these little strips and folding them in half and tie them. And then you can alternate pieces.
Whatever colors you want to alternate.
What I tried to do was put several of one color together before I went to the next color, so it created a little bit of pattern there. And once you get them tied on, if you'll push them tight, it makes it real full and pretty. But these were called rag garlands, and it was a lot of the poor people made them, and people out in the country who couldn't get to store-bought decorations or,
Use your leftover clothes, rags,
Right.
and whatever else.
Yeah.
Tie them together. I guess they probably maybe they dyed some of them too to make the
They
colors
could have,
that
and
they wanted to.
flour and cornmeal came in fancy cloth bags, and they used those
Oh,
too.
that's right. That's right. And they would cut those bags up, wouldn't they?
Yep.
They could use
And of
burlap.
course-
They could use any darn
Of course,
thing,
if
couldn't
you
they?
were really wealthy, you could use ribbon, I guess, but ribbon was kind of expensive.
yeah.
But anyhow, that's the idea, and you just keep tying until you make a whole garland.
And that's the kind of thing anybody could do because it's
Anybody
just a
could do
little bow knot, isn't it?
And it can cost a lot of money if you buy a lot of fancy material, but it can also be free if you just use scraps laying around the house.
And there's a really good idea of what you can get, and you put a little swag in there,
A
and
little
there you
swag
got
in
your
there, and then I hung the toys in
Yeah.
one bow.
Neat.
So
Now we're going to see a Christmas tree that you have. I think it's upstairs where you have it decked out with paper snowflakes.
paper snowflakes.
And I think kids have learned this back in grade school, but they forgot how to do it. So you're going to show us how to
Well,
do that
I know
again, too.
when I taught school, that was one of the first things that I taught at Christmas time was how to make a snowflake. So I've got a couple here. I'm going to lay them on this dark paper so they'll show up better for the camera that I've cut out earlier. They can be made any size. And what I do is iron them when I get them cut out because you have to fold them to make them, and those folds they won't lay down real pretty.
Right.
So if you just iron them with your iron on cotton or hide.
Okay.
And it's a very simple process. You start out by making a square, and you do that by folding a right angle. Excuse me. And then you cut that extra piece off. And now those little extra pieces is what you make those little bitty ones out of.
Oh, okay.
And then you fold another right angle. And then this is a little tricky part, but not really. You have to make 3 folds. And after you make several hundred, you'll do that real easy. Now,
Several hundred.
you cut these little tails off so that you can square it up, and that's what gives it that shape. Because there's actually 8 sides. And if you're not feeling real confident when you first start, you can take your pencil and draw patterns on here before you cut. But after
You've done it
you've
several
done
hundred
some,
times,
you'll just
you kinda
start
know where
cutting. Because you can't go wrong. It'll just make a pattern, whatever you
Well,
want.
they say every snowflake's different, right? So
Right.
there's no right snowflake.
So what you don't want to do is cut all the way across because it'll fall apart. So you have to leave some space in the middle and space between each one. But you want to cut most of the paper away so that's where the designs come from. And you'd be surprised what they really look like when you open them up. I know I am, and I've made millions.
It's always a surprise.
Yeah,
Huh? Sometimes you really like the surprise, and sometimes you don't.
Right.
Probably, huh?
And again, if you feel like it's a little scary at first, you can draw
Just
them.
don't go all the way through.
Right.
So you end up
You
with
got to
peak-
leave space between
Right.
them and in the middle.
Uh-huh.
And then when you get it all cut as much as you want to cut, you just open them up. And you have a snowflake.
Oh, you sure do. Isn't that pretty?
And then I take a regular household iron and have it on real high, the hottest temperature, a cotton setting, and just gently press it. And that takes a lot of that folding away so that they'll lay flat and look pretty.
And not to waste paper, you take these
And-
first cuts that you were talking about,
And you
can
fold it,
make that,
and you make a little one
and you make
right
a little
there.
one, and kids would have a blast with that.
And then to hang them up, I take a needle and thread and hook them together like this. Then I'll take another one and hook to that. Just a regular needle and thread. And then you can put as many together as you want.
And it
then-
gives you something to hang them with,
Then
too,
at the
right?
top, I use a regular little ornament hook that you can buy at the dime store.
Ah, okay.
And tie some string up there and hook that to it so you can hook them to chandeliers or window shades or whatever. So you can hang them in a row.
Yeah, or
When
to
we
the
go
limb
up-
of the tree. Right?
Yeah, and make garlands for the tree. When we go upstairs, you'll see them hanging from the chandelier.
Okay. Okay, neat.
So that's the snowflake.
Okay. Well, you say let's go upstairs. Let's go upstairs and see
Okay.
not only the snowflakes, but you've got these goose feather trees that
That
I
we're
also
gonna-
wanted
that
to
we're
show
gonna talk
too.
about, right, yeah.
And then we'll come back and we'll make some roses. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Good deal.
Roses are not quite as easy, but we'll do it.
Okay. Now I see what you do with the snowflakes.
Yeah.
You hang them from a chandelier, and that's where the string comes in, huh?
Yeah, this is the library on the second floor, and I like to pretend that if when the Elgens lived here, they might have spent their evenings up here, a little less formal room, and the kids might have learned to make the snowflakes and decorated the chandelier and the Christmas tree.
This is the Christmas tree I wanted to bring attention to here, Richard, because these were not always natural out of the woods trees. They actually started making these artificially.
No, the
didn't they?
Germans made the first artificial tree because they were concerned that their forests would be, because the trees had to be cut down small, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
and it takes about 15 years for a tree to get big enough to be a Christmas tree. So they invented the goose feather tree. Germans grow a lot of geese, and they make down feathers and down cushions out of the little feathers, but the big feathers were
The
being
big
thrown
feathers
away.
were just thrown away?
So they cut that spine out of the middle and wrapped them around wires and dyed them.
Well, now, so this is the spine is gone,
Yeah,
and this is the big
actual little
feathers,
feathers.
just
And
wrapped.
this was about an 1860 or 1870 tree, and it's real, and they're kind of hard to find and pretty fragile.
I'll bet they are. I'll bet they are.
And I decorated it with the snowflakes. And then under the tree, I have all the presents that the Elgin children might have gotten.
So it's possible that Mr. Elgin would have had one of these goose feather
Yeah,
trees.
they were.
Yeah.
The first ones were sold at Sears and Roebuck, so he could have ordered it out of the catalog.
Yeah.
They came in little boxes. They all fold up like an umbrella.
You have two other trees in the house that are facsimiles of this.
Right, they're
They're newer
reproductions,
reproductions, but they're also the
Right.
goose feather style.
Right.
Okay. Okay, we've been promising these roses, these beautiful
Well,
little
we better
roses.
go do it.
We got to go see. We got to see how you do that. Sorry, buddy. Richard, when we looked at your Victorian tree, it had those garlands of roses, and there were more than 1,000 roses that you tied by hand.
Well, these
on their tree.
originated by the ladies making them for their dresses and hats. And then I copied the idea to do a tree garland.
Oh,
so,
okay. Well, show us how you do it.
it takes
must
about
be a
it takes
remarkable
about a yard of ribbon. You can
procedure.
use any size of ribbon, any color, any size, and you start out by folding a right angle down towards you, and then you fold over that several times, and roll it, and roll it, and roll it until you get a tight little center. That's that very center part of the rose right there. See that little bitty center part right there? And then after that, that's going to be your stem, and this is your center. After that, it's mainly folding right angles and rolling over top. And as you roll, you gently pull up. So you fold down a right angle, roll over top, and gently pull up. Fold a right angle, roll over top, and gently pull up. Fold down, roll, pull up. Fold down, roll, pull up.
You can make as big a rose as you want,
You can
right?
make as big as you want, and the more ribbon you make, the bigger around the rose will be. And if you wanted to stop right now, it would be kind of a bud. And then after I get it all made, which is folding right angles, rolling, pulling up. Folding right angles, rolling, pulling up. Folding right angles, rolling and pulling up. That's all there is to it. I know it's going to be hard for whoever tries it, but once you make quite a few, you'll get
Or a couple thousand of them.
and it's hard to hold it in your hands at first because you. That's when I kind of go like this, kind of cove it with this hand. And then after you get as much of the ribbon used as you want to, which it seems like it doesn't want to go away, does it?
No, it's a...
You take
There
this
you
little
go.
piece here and you wad it up and you put it down around the tail that we started out with. Now if you turn the rose this way, it gets looser and makes an open rose. If you turn it this way, it makes it tighter and makes a more closed rose. And then you use florist wire, which you can get at any hobby store or flower shop, and you wire those two stems together real tight. And then I use floral tape, which you can get at the hobby store. This is really not sticky, but it sticks to itself. And when you pull on it, you stretch it a little bit, and then you wind it tight, and then that'll cover up your wires and hold the rose together real good and strong. And that's really all there is to it.
That's beautiful. Hold that just right out for the camera. Now, when you put these together on a garland, I guess what do you have, a rope or something?
Yeah, I'm going to show you that next here.
Oh, okay, all right.
We'll go to these ones that I have already got made. And again, I start with a piece of floral wire, and I cover it with tape. Again, you have to pull on the tape, and it sticks to itself, but you have to stretch it. And then I make a hook, and then you take a rose, and you lay it right below the hook, and you tape it to the wire with a little bit of floral tape. And then you go down maybe an inch or two, depends on how close together you want them. And then you take another rose and lay it there and take the floral tape and hook it on. I usually leave about an inch or so between each one. And you keep on going until you make it as long as you want. Now, I make them in about 3-foot sections because it's easier to drape on the tree, but you could make them 100 feet long if you wanted to. At that time, I take this little cheap green garland that I get at the dime store, and I just start at the top, and I twist it through the roses. And that hides the wire, and it gives that beautiful greenery effect.
Yeah, that's neat.
See? It just hides the wire and it ties it all together. Now, you don't have to put this on the Christmas tree. You could hang these on mirrors. You could hang them on door frames or on the mantles.
Sure.
But that's how you do it.
That's nice.
And then when you put them on the tree, I always put a little loop in it like that. So these are red, but the ones on the tree are pink and burgundy.
Pink,
you
the
can
pinks
use
are
any color you want.
beautiful,
And if you wanted to do that new shabby chic look that everybody's doing, you could make them out of newspaper, cut the newspaper in strips.
Right.
Yeah.
Neat. Thank you.
So it takes about a yard of ribbon for each one. So that's the rose. Think you can do it, Mark?
Oh, I don't think I can do it, but I like watching. From roses to ornaments, Richard.
Right.
Okay. Let's see how you did those wonderful looking Victorian.
Well, I
ornaments.
call these medallions, and I use these.
Medallions.
I use these paper doilies that you get at stores to put under cookies and cakes. They come in various sizes. They come in white, gold, and silver. I used all gold on my tree. I used what
This
they
is kind of
call
a look at what the finished product looks like. Isn't that nice?
And I used what they call Victorian scrap art. These were made and sold in the Victorian days to put in scrapbooks to decorate the pictures in the scrapbooks, and they come on a page like this. I glue them on a piece of colored construction paper and then on a piece of poster paper, and then I cut that out. And that gives it girth so it won't be flat because these are real thin. And I do the same thing with the medallion. I glue it to colored construction paper, and then I glue it on poster paper and cut it out. And then I take little pieces of corrugated cardboard like this, and I glue them with the glue gun, which is down there, and then put this on top, which gives you a three-dimensional look. And then when that's done, I take, my glue gun's down there, I take this tinsel garland and put all around the edge, like this, and then it finishes up like that. And then you decorate it with all kind of jewels and things. And the good thing about nowadays, these come in a little box at the dollar store because little girls like to decorate their rooms with them.
Okay,
and
so this is affordable. These little things
these
are
are like
affordable.
$2 for a whole box of this.
Okay.
And you just drop a little piece of glue and put the ornaments wherever you want. So that's basically the steps. Put paper behind this and poster paper, put paper behind this and poster paper, glue them together with a little cardboard between for three-dimensional, decorate them with the trim, and put the
I love the three-dimensional look, the way this stands out from the back. And you can see what you've done here because this is not flimsy at all with this reinforcement that you've got here.
And then I put another piece of cardboard on the back to kind of dress it up, and I put an ornament hook and a little extra support there to hold the ornament hook. And if you wanted to, you could get several sizes of these and build them up by putting a bigger one behind it, and a bigger one behind it, and a bigger
It'd give
one
even
behind
more
it.
of a three-dimensional look, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's something that the Victorian people could have done for their trees.
Yeah.
And some people use old jewelry to decorate with. But I was lucky to find these at the dollar store.
I feel uncomfortable with using old jewelry because I mean these could get lost or kicked around.
Well, it would be costume
kids
jewelry,
pull them
yeah,
off the
yeah.
the trees or something.
And of course, this is very inexpensive at the dollar store, and you just glue it on with the glue gun in the back and cut it off, and that's it.
Fascinating. Hey, thanks for your tour.
No problem.
And actually, I want to tell the audience that you're good enough to open your house for tours for groups, small groups, more than 2, or larger groups up to 25. You can call the Cottrell House, and Richard is more than happy to take your tour group through his house and show you his 6 Christmas trees and all the decorations that go with it.
And we could even make roses.
Even make roses for you. With another Illinois story in Clarksville, Missouri, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.